Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for taking the time out to click on the video and check the channel out. Now, you find me today in the dry because outside it's blowing a gale and it's pouring down the rain, and it's put the end to my plans I had today out in the woods. So I'm indoors, so I thought I'd do a quick video.
Lucky us!
So today's video, we're going to dive into a topic that's on a lot of people's mind. And as we step into 2025, we're all asking, what can we expect to happen next?
The shit is hitting the fan, and we're all going to be covered in it.
I try and keep politics out of my videos. I try to stay away from the fear-mongering. There's plenty of videos out there, plenty of channels, so hop on that bandwagon and use sensationalism to get views. No matter what is going on in the world, they jump on it and they bombard you with all this sort of malarkey. And yeah, I stay away from all that. I try and keep my channel to more practical solutions and talk about hints, tips, and equipment. But we can all agree that the world is changing fast, isn't it? And staying prepared now is more important than ever, I believe. So in this video, I'm going to share my 5 predictions for 2025 and what's coming ahead, and how I think you can prepare for them and to keep yourself and your family safe. Now, these are just my thoughts and predictions on them. You may agree with them, you may not. You may have your own ideas.
This could be the best year ever.
And your own predictions, and I'm quite happy to see them if you put them in the comments below, so feel welcome to do so if you want. So the first one is economic uncertainty. So rising cost of living, inflation, and supply chain issues are still affecting us. Since 2019, we've not only seen the cost of living rise by roughly 30%, we've seen many reasons why it's a good idea to be prepared. Whether it's a new president in the US or a new government in the UK, I still have a feeling that in the near future, things look very uncertain. Here in the UK, it seems the government are doing their utmost, their best, to make the cost of living crisis harder and harder by the day.
Whole bunch of functional idiots.
And with the possible trade tariffs coming in elsewhere, I feel the cost of food and goods will become more and more unaffordable for some. And also with massive increase in debts in Western governments, our fiat currencies are becoming worthless by day. So what can you do to prepare? We've got to focus on financial resilience. So if you can, build an emergency fund with multiple forms of currency. Myself, I don't know much about crypto or stock markets. I don't bother with any of that. But I do save a little of precious metals, a little bit of gold and silver, just as an insurance policy, really. You can also stockpile essential items. While the prices are still manageable, just things like canned goods, food, freeze-dried food, or even barterable items and equipment like batteries, hygiene products, things that will hold their value. And remember, it's not just about stockpiling stuff. It's about combating inflation, being smart with your resources. It's turning any extra cash you might have into tangible items, things that hold their value or increase in value over time. I've seen this at first hand with the freeze-dried food. When I first opened up the shop, a tin, say, of diced chicken 4 years ago was 38 quid, 38 pounds. Now the same tins are over 60 pounds. So if someone bought that tin, say 4 years ago, it's good for 25 years, so we aren't going to worry about shelf life. But they've seen a massive increase in investment on that product, on that tangible item. I've seen another 12 months worth of freeze-dried food go out the shop this week, and that's gone up 15% from last year. In January, they put the prices up. So that tangible item is always going to increase in value. Or another way of looking at it, that tangible item, whether it's a freeze-dried food or a bar of gold, it holds its value, whereas the money loses its value next to it. So the money becomes worth less and less. Who knows how much that tin of meat is going to be worth in the next 10, 15 years, isn't it? So that was my first prediction for 2025, is more financial uncertainty. So number 2 on my 5 predictions for 2025, and that is power grids and emergency challenges. So what do I mean by energy challenges? Well, with an increased aging infrastructure, power outages could become more frequent. So whether it's a blackout or even fuel shortages, you need to be ready. Governments are obsessed at the moment, aren't they, in this green energy, the Green New Deal and all this rubbish, and they're hell-bent on replacing oil and gas for solar and wind. Oil and gas, they work in all weathers, don't they? They work in all seasons, all weathers, unlike those useless wind turbines you see. We've seen it before, haven't we? When there's too much snow, the solar panels don't work. When there's not enough wind, the wind turbines don't work. When there's too much wind, the wind turbines don't work. So if the government's hell-bent on trying to replace our tried and tested ways of producing power with these green initiatives, in the future, I think demand could outstrip supply. And what supply there is going to be a lot more expensive. Now, in times of shortages, governments already have plans in place to limit supply to certain homes and businesses. And if these measures are implemented, how would you cope? So there are a few things you can do to prepare yourself for this. Now, if you can't afford to do so, invest in solar panels. Myself, I've got, I think it's 24 solar panels on the roof, 2 big lithium batteries. Now, not only does that reduce energy costs, if there is a power outage, then batteries, they can run certain things in the house here for a good few days. Now, apart from the solar panels, there's portable power stations. You know, your Jackerys, your EcoFlows, your Averys, which I've done videos on. And the latest one I've done was the Allpowers. As there are more and more of these on the market now, and the technology is getting better and better, the prices have made these more and more affordable. And to go along with the bigger power stations, make sure you've got a few little power battery banks as well. These are always good to have charged up. So if there is a power outage, you can charge up your small devices, you know, your phones or your torches. Also, if there are power shortages and you've got the power off for a certain amount of time, have alternative ways of not just heating your home, but also cooking your food, as I mentioned on previous videos before. It's all about being proactive and thinking what problems could arise and how do I best combat it. So that's my second prediction, and that's power grid and energy challenges. My third one is climate-related emergencies. So climate-related emergencies, from extreme weather to wildfires, natural disasters, they're becoming more and more intense and more frequent, aren't they? It seems like it. Now, I'm a believer that the planet's eco and weather systems are so large, complex and intertwined that we have very little impact on it as human beings. And what impact we do have is negated by natural events, you know, volcanic eruptions or, you know, weather-related events, whatever it is. Plus, climate changes have happened since the Earth's beginning and will happen, you know, if we're here or not. In the recent storms, we had many trees down, not just in our own woodland, but all over the country, and there was flooding. But as you've seen in LA recently, there can be even more devastating emergencies, whether it's climate-related or maybe potentially man-made. And as we've seen in LA, even some of the most wealthiest people on the planet there, they just had minutes to grab a few belongings and flee their homes. And which potential weather emergency you may encounter will obviously depend on your location on the planet. Hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, flooding, you know, even torrential rain. So that will also depend on where you live. But preparing for those potential dangers is critical. You know, making sure you and your family have a go bag packed and ready to go. And if you are in really high risk areas, you can even practice evacuation routes with your family. Now, what you pack in your go bag, again, that will depend on your location and your circumstances. But all should really contain something to keep you warm, keep you dry, maybe something to eat, something to drink. If you haven't got a drink, a water filtration system so you can get a drink. Plus any important documents, you know, IDs, driver license, passports, you know, cash, bank cards, anything you would need in an emergency. That's just for starters. But the main thing really is to be prepared for the unexpected. Not only will this give you an advantage in such a situation, but it'll also give you that peace of mind. So that was my third prediction, more climate-related emergencies. Now, before we move on to 4 and 5, my predictions are what I think more realistic. Now, those of you who are waiting for, say, potential alien invasions or zombie attacks or whatever it is, yeah, we're not going to get them in my predictions. They're more than what I think is realistic to what could potentially happen come 2025 and in the near future. So, with that being said, what is number 4? Well, that's geopolitical instability. The world stage is tense, isn't it, at the moment? And there is hope that change in the White House may bring a bit of stability in some areas, but some governments over the years, over the last few years, they've invested heavily, a lot of time, a lot of money and promises to conflicts, especially in the Eastern Europe. And they've stated they will do for decades to come. So things will go one of two ways, I think, especially out in Eastern Europe. Either a stalemate, as in like previous Cold War, the line will be drawn and there'll be NATO on one side, Russia on the other, and there'll be some sort of buffer zone. Or there'll be an incident somewhere, and then that will escalate things, and NATO will have to go into Ukraine to aid or something, and before you know it, we're in all-out war. And it's not just the Ukraine. Things are on a bit of a knife edge in the Middle East. There's governments being changed, potential wars going on there. So you've got to keep your eye out on that, and potential conflicts out in Asia. And also a geopolitical issue is the mass migration of people into Europe and to North America. This mass migration of people to the West has and will cause all sorts of problems that we've all been witness to. You know, conflicts, potential conflicts, uneasiness in countries due to mass migration. So with all this going on, I think this means we need to focus and prioritise on being a bit more self-reliant. So the country and the world has changed, isn't it? And in my opinion, it hasn't changed for the better. So be prepared, be more observant, keep informed, form communities, and have more awareness of what's going on. So that was number 4, geopolitical instability. I suppose you could tag along that as well, is our ongoing attacks on our freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of movement. But I'm not going to go too much into that. But you can look forward to 2025 and beyond, where that gets worse and worse. Briefly, digital IDs, central bank digital currencies, lack of freedoms. Yeah, that's all coming, but I'm not going to delve too much into that. But look out for that in the near future. So the last one of my top 5 predictions for 2025 and the near future is health and medical emergencies. So the last few years, they've shown us how quickly medical systems can be totally overwhelmed. Our health system is finding itself dealing with an ever-increasing population with less and less resources. Growing up in the 70s, 80s, even the 90s, you can see a doctor whenever you wanted. You can make an appointment just like that. You go to hospital, you're going to get treated straight away. These days, yes, the health service is doing their best, but you can't get an ambulance. You can't go and see a doctor when you want. You go to hospital, you're waiting for hours and hours, you know, sometimes 24 hours on a seat in the A&E. If you get an appointment, you've got to wait weeks and weeks, if not months for it. So our health systems are at breaking point. And this year, or in the next couple of years, I predict we could have another health emergency as per 2019, 2020. Last time Trump was in office, wasn't it? You see constant warnings today on the legacy media about certain types of flu. It's everywhere, and the potential risks to humans. There's already calls for potential lockdowns and mask wearing. So we have to learn from what happened last time and be ready for anything. So to go with that, first, to be prepared. You know what happened in the past, so you should be prepared what could happen in the future. That goes without saying. And also, to be prepared for it is making sure you've got relevant medical and first aid supplies at home. Whether it's a good, decent first aid kit. So if you did have an emergency at home and you knew you couldn't get an ambulance for hours, or hospital is miles away, and if you do go to hospital, you can't be seen, or there's some sort of pandemic going on, making sure you can treat any minor injuries at home with a decent first aid kit. Another thing to consider, if there was restrictions on your movements or potential lockdowns in the future, is making sure you've got a good stockpile of over-the-counter medications and essentials while they're still available. And another thing I always recommend is learning how to deal with minor injuries at home. So get yourselves or family members on a good practical first aid course. So then not only have you got the equipment to deal with an emergency, you've got the know-how how to use that equipment. If there was a major injury, that initial first aid treatment that you give could be the difference between life and death. So that was number 5, potential health and medical emergencies and how you can prepare against them. So there we have it, guys. There's my 5 predictions for 2025 and the near future on how best you can prepare against them. There was economic uncertainty, energy challenges, climate emergencies, geopolitical instability, and health preparedness. Now, as I say, these are just my 5 predictions of what we could see in 2025. I'm hoping it will be hunky-dory and we're all going to have sunshine and rainbows, but who knows? And it doesn't look that way. When you look at what's going on in the world, it's been constant since 2019, isn't it? It's been disaster after disaster after disaster. I've never known a 4 or 5 year span before where it's gone from global pandemic to war to energy crisis to cost of living crisis, one thing after another. So it's always good to be prepared for whatever comes our way next. And the key to any preparedness, no matter what emergency you're preparing for, is to start small, take small, actionable steps, and try and stay informed. As I said before on the channel, I try and keep away from the sensationalism and jumping on the next bandwagon, whatever's in the news, just to get the hits and the subscribers. I try and keep it more practical. But I just want to put my thoughts out there and see what you think. Right, that's it, guys. That's the video. If you do like this sort of video and you want me to talk on other subjects, put it in the comments below and I'll have a look at doing that. And if you've got your own predictions for 2025 and what we could expect to see, again, put them in the comments below. But that's it for this one. I hope I haven't bored you too much. If you haven't done so already, please think about liking, subscribing, hit the notification bell. And if you do want to see some more videos, check that one out and that one. And I'll catch you again next time. All the best.